For my entire life, I've been exposed to many different cultures and surroundings. It's what I grew up in. With my fingers on the window of my car. My parents work for the State Department, so their job required that they live and work overseas. At the age of 3, I was living in Budapest, Hungary. By the time I was 6, I was in Kuwait City, Kuwait. For 4th and 5th grade, I lived in Abuja, Nigeria. And for middle school, I was in Manila, the Philippines. I couldn't get too attached to a certain place or certain people because I knew I would be leaving them at one point. I would always be asking myself, what happens when this is over? What comes next? In many of the countries I lived in, the white population was in the minority. Being in the minority influenced my perspective of the places I lived in. I didn't speak the native language, so I couldn't connect very well to the locals. I didn't understand what advertisements, or menus, or street signs said. I also didn't have the palate for foreign delicacies, like balut from the Philippines, which is the raw embryo of a chicken before it has even hatched. And I also, to this day, do not like exotic fruit. Mangoes, papayas, even bananas I can't stand. Not being a native, I also didn't understand a lot of the country's customs and traditions. In Kuwait, where the population is mostly Muslim, there would be frequent calls to prayers every day, where a Muezzin would chant a prayer in Arabic from a mosque loud enough for the whole town to hear. At first I didn't understand what it was, but even after I knew that it was a religious ritual, I still couldn't understand what they were saying. These were all barriers for me, the language, the food, and the customs, and were all present because I was not a native. I'm sure that because I was white, a lot of the natives in those countries saw me differently than they would see one of their fellow natives. In the Philippines, there is a widespread craze to have white skin. While Americans and Europeans are focused on tanning, Filipinos are focused on whitening. There are soaps, lotions, shampoos, and creams that all claim to whiten skin. So, many times, my family has had people stare at us because of our white skin and the color of our hair. Sometimes women would follow and chase my little sister and me around just to ask to touch our skin or our hair, which could be scary. And I'm sure there were other premonitions they had about us, too. Even though I did see the places I lived in through the lens of my ethnicity, I still think that growing up overseas made me more accepting of others, more aware of the world around me, and a more outgoing person. And even though I thought that I would stop asking myself, what comes next, once I move back to the United States one final time, I find that I still ask that question. Right now is a very important time in my life, and I still have so many decisions to make. What will come next after college? Will I ever go back overseas? I hope to, at some time in the future. I don't want to forget all the different cultures and surroundings I grew up in.